Hey guys, Cyber Aquarist here. I just want to go over Eheim's Everyday Fish Feeder real quick. I'm getting ready to go on vacation to Florida for a week, and I don't want to have to rely on my neighbor to come over and feed my fish 3 times a day. So I'm going to just do a quick overview of the Eheim's Everyday Fish Feeder. I bought mine several months ago from Doctors Foster and Smith, and right now they're going for $39.99. which I think that's relatively a good price. But I've used it a couple times, just experiment with it, but now I'm going to be relying on this thing to keep my fish alive and healthy over the next week. The unit is relatively small, and it comes with a bracket that you can mount on the rim of your aquarium and some Velcro tape if you just want to put it on a glass canopy. But I'm not going to be relying on that. I built a bracket into my canopy when I built my canopy, and I'm going to be using the heavier duty Velcro tape and some zip ties to secure this to my bracket. I don't want it falling in the aquarium while I'm away. But the unit runs on 2 AA batteries. It has an LCD, fully programmable display. This is the time of day here, and you can program up to 4 feedings with 2 dispenses at each feeding. And if you push the mode button, you'll see right now the time is, that's my 3rd feeding. The time is 4:50, and I've got 3 feedings programmed in with 1 dispensing at each feeding. All right, my first feeding will be at 5 o'clock. It'll dump food 1 time. My second feeding is 2.5 hours later at 7:30. It'll dump food 1 time. And then at 9:45, 45 minutes before lights out, it'll dispense food 1 more time. And my 4th feeding is not programmed in. I really like this unit. It has a built-in ventilator to keep your food dry. And I'm using New Life Spectrum's 3mm Thera Plus A pellets. And a lot of you know that the Thera Plus A pellets will float on the surface of the water, and since I have an overflow box, I don't want these floating over to the overflow box and clogging it up or fouling my aquarium water. So I'm going to be using a feeding ring, which I've built my own here. Really simple to do. I had this unit for years, or this little contraption, but this just isn't going to cut it. It's not large enough. So I'm going to get to this in a second. Really easy to make. But before you just set off on your vacation, you want to make sure how much food that your feeder is going to be dispensing. And it has a manual feed button here. It's the Eheim logo. Just push it 1 time, and this is how much food is going to be dispensed at each feeding. Alright, mind you, all this food will be inside the feeding ring, giving it time for the fish to get to it, and any of the pellets that are floating will either get eaten or get water saturated and sink. But that's more than enough food, since it's going to be 3 times a day. And I've already talked about feeding African cichlids more frequently with less at each feeding. So that's a good amount there. I'm going to leave it set. You set the amount of food with this slider here. You can open it up larger or close it up smaller. But with my feeding ring, just went out at a local hardware store and I bought a piece of 5/8 inch outer diameter by 1/2 inch inner diameter vinyl tubing, and I bought an insert by insert 1/2 inch hose barb. Just made a circle, simple as that. And I took the suction cup that came off of this unit and I zip tied to the little slot here. I'm going to stick this on the front of my aquarium, and it's just going to sit up underneath this feeder, and when it dispenses food, the food will go into this ring and the fish will get to it before it goes to the overflow. If you're not using a sump, you don't necessarily have to have a feeding ring, but I would highly recommend it because the food will stay in one spot. The fish can target the food before it has a chance to go all over the aquarium, and they could miss a few pieces and it could settle on the bottom. But if you're not using a sump, your evaporation is going to cause your water level to fluctuate. So you want to leave some slack in these units so that the feeding ring will ride on top of the water as the water level goes down, and you can leave slack in your zip tie here as well. Well, my first feeding is in 6 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing mounted on my bracket, and I'll show you guys how it's gonna function. Okay, be right back. Okay guys, I had to make a couple of adjustments to the unit. At the 5 o'clock feeding, they just devoured the food in probably 5 seconds flat. It just wasn't enough, and some of the other fish didn't even realize what was going on. So what I did is I reprogrammed the first feeding to dispense twice. The second feeding will dispense once, and the third feeding will dispense twice. I manually cycled the unit 5 times to see how much food will be going into the aquarium each day. And this is it. This is 5 feedings, spread out throughout the day. That should be sufficient. I've seen people throw this amount of food in their aquariums at one time, and a lot of it just goes to waste. So I'll come back in here at 7:30 to show you the automatic feeding at 7:30. But it'll only dispense once at 7:30. So okay guys, I'll be back in a little bit. Okay guys, the feeding ring is in place. The Everyday Fish Feeder is mounted in position, and I've got it adjusted, programmed just right to dispense the correct amount of food. Should be feeding here in about the next 30 seconds, and that thing's not going anywhere. I've got it velcroed to the bracket and zip tied. It'll come down once I get back from vacation, but it's securely mounted. It's not going to go anywhere, and the feeding ring is suction cupped to the front of the glass. Here it goes. Yep. That's it. That was just one feeding at 7:30, one rotation, and at 9:15, 9:45, it'll make 2 rotations. So this aquarium should be fully automated while I'm on vacation. The lights have a built-in timer. Automatic feeding. I did a water change yesterday. Nitrates remain right at 0, so it really shouldn't need to do a water change while I'm away. Okay guys, appreciate everybody watching, and I'll get back with you guys as soon as I get back from vacation. Give you an update on the aquarium, make sure everybody made it. Alright guys, take care, have a good night.